We present the main Loyola TV news to be read by Clement Mwanza. The headlines. Schools to reopen between 14th and 28th September. Movement for Multi-Party Democracy says the media in Zambia has a huge role to play in ensuring that democracy thrives. The family of Congolese independence hero Patrice Lumumba has welcomed the court ruling that said the tooth should be returned to his family. Talks over a trade deal with the EU are hanging in the balance amid a standoff over the UK's plans to override part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. And now the details. President Edgar Lungu says schools will reopen between 14th and 28th September. Mr. Lungu says all primary, secondary schools, colleges and universities will reopen under the new normal, which requires following laid-down health regulations. Learning institutions closed last March following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also says the decision to reopen is as a result of concerns expressed by not only parents but organizations. Mr. Lungu made the announcement during the official opening of the 5th session of the 12th National Assembly in Lusaka today. President Lungu said the Ministries of General Education, Higher Education and Health should put in place modalities that will ensure schools remain safe for all pupils. The president further stated that teachers will also be expected to ensure pupils catch up on all the lost academic lessons.
Mr. Speaker, pursuing economic recovery for the Zambia we want is the #1 goal of my government because so much depends on the economy. Our mindset should therefore be attuned to building a Zambia that is resilient to shocks, a Zambia that is open to new ideas and opportunities, a Zambia that is looking forward, that's looking inwards for local solutions. Mr. Speaker, our country needs the dedication of all of us to overcome the setbacks we have encountered. All citizens to continue buying and consuming locally produced goods. This will create and retain jobs within our economy. When we strengthen our local manufacturing sector and encourage buying Zambian products, we save the much needed foreign currency that is otherwise used to import foreign products.
And President Lungu has announced the partial reopening of bars, taverns and nightclubs. He said the bars, taverns and nightclubs will operate from Friday to Sundays between 18 hours and 23 hours. He said the owners of bars, taverns and nightclubs should ensure anyone visiting their places adheres to COVID-19 health regulations.
We need the dedication of all those in our healthcare facilities. We need the dedication of all our farmers, our factory and our shop workers, those in construction, mining, finance, and the larger service industry. We need the dedication of teachers to keep our schools running and safe. The dedication of our market store owners, as well as customers, to keep our markets safe, clean, and conducive for business. We all need to work hard in order to keep the wheels of our economy turning. Now is the time to give our very best for Mother Zambia. Mr. Speaker, dedication alone will not be enough. We also need resilience. We need to build resilience in all our systems, resilience in all our businesses, resilience in all sectors of our economy, and indeed, the resilience of our people.
Zambia National Union of Teachers is impressed and elated by the reopening of schools. Joe Kasaka, the Director for Public Relations and International Affairs, says the presidential directive has come at the right time because pupils need to learn in third term for good progression next year. Mr. Kasaka was speaking by telephone to Loyola News.
I'm happy that he has done it, and our wish is that all the children that left our schools should come back in one piece. And I think it has been everyone's cry that the schools should be reopened, because we have seen that the children that remained in school under this COVID situation, those that remained in school, none of the children, so to say, have died out of COVID. So it means school environment is safe, therefore it can open, and we allow other children also to learn. Because if schools were not to be open, it's better children learn term 3, though they skip term 2, but they can progress to a higher grade next year. That way it's better.
Meanwhile, the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, says poverty levels remain high in the country. Innocent Ndashe, the JCTR programs manager, says President Lungu should have explained in detail to the citizenry possible ways to reduce poverty. Mr. Ndashe was reacting to the presidential parliamentary address.
Our expectation was that an update would be given on the strides, the progress that would have been made, particularly to stabilize, for example, businesses and a few maybe targets that were intended for the interventions. So that was actually one of the areas that I think we feel that was lacking, and it might be difficult for the Minister of Finance to, for example, respond to the challenges without having the ground on which you can actually have a learning. So I think we would have expected much information. I know, for example, like the agriculture sector also, when you are looking at diversification, and the President acknowledges that the sector has been performing very well.
With the continued rise in the number of COVID-19 cases, there has been a call to maintain high levels of hygiene in communities. However, this has been a challenge for some Lusaka residents due to erratic water supply. The water utility, Lusaka Water and Storage Company, stated that it is currently undergoing maintenance works to allow for better water supply in the affected areas. More in this report.
Water is life. It is a natural resource that we cannot live without. Lusaka City has for a while now been experiencing water shortages, and many densely populated areas such as Mutendere, Kaunda Square and Matero have been faced with this challenge. With the rise in cases of COVID-19, there has been a call to ensure high standards of hygiene. But with the lack of adequate water supply, this has proven difficult for many Lusaka residents.
Every day one kwacha container shit zakwanisa. Manzi kuno yakaenda yamatinga almost like all 1 week. The
Lusaka Water and Storage Company has been experiencing challenges in water supply.
We have a high demand for water in the city, and then what we are producing is not adequate to meet that demand. So in that situation, what we have done is to ensure that we start rationing supply. So what that means is that customers will experience reduced hours of supply. For example, if customers were having 24 hours supply of water, they may have 12 hours of water, or they may have water which is supplied to them periodically.
And the regulatory body, the National Water Supply and Sanitation Council, NWASCO, has continued to encourage consumers to conserve water.
First of all, I'll begin at household level. We do not leave our taps running, because once you leave your taps running, you know that that's wastage of water. So we start from that point.
It is hoped that the water situation in Lusaka will return to normal soon. Mogasibuku, Loyola News.
We take our first break, and still to come, the era of digital migration has brought about an increase in the number of media institutions in the country. An intelligence analyst at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has said he was put under pressure to downplay the threats of Russian interference in the 3rd November election because it made the president look bad. Stay with us.
May we use these trying moments to rise to something that's important. Take life not for granted. Tell someone that you love them. If any of you have any COVID-19 symptoms, which are a fever of above 38 degrees Celsius, a cough, difficulty in breathing, shortness of breath, or chest pains, please do not hesitate to call 909 or 0974 49 35 53, and medical assistance will come your way. We hope for the better and leave everything in the hands of God. Together, we can combat COVID-19. Please stay at home for me. I stayed at work for you. Be that change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Welcome back. The era of digital migration has brought about an increase in the number of media institutions in the country. This proliferation of media houses has also placed the issue of professionalism and ethics under the spotlight. Questions abound on unverified information and social media chatter that is sometimes disseminated as news to the public. Idem Jokoto, media trainer and veteran journalist, says practitioners must not forget their basics and avoid dependence on social media. Mr. Jokoto was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka.
I think it's very simple. Go back to the basics. Identify what public interest is. This is a nation of 17 million, and the 17 million people, their concerns, their needs, their aspirations, the things that affect all of us, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of ethnicity, those should be the things that matter. I'll give you a practical example when I say there is no news. When I talk to editors and journalists, they'll tell me that no, politics is what sells. But they can't justify it with the figures. They can't. You see? Now, I would tell you that if politics were that important, surely there would be a ministry of politics, right? But is there a ministry of politics? There isn't. Instead, there are ministries that are based on sectors. And those sectors that attract funding from the national treasury are based on matters of public interest. Education. It all has to do with the fact that mainstream media has moved away from the basics and the fundamentals. And everybody is chasing what they think is a soap opera as opposed to the news. So you play political adversaries against each other, you play interest groups against each other, and the fireworks that emerges is what you cover as news. That is very, very, very dangerous. And for me, that creates an opportunity for things to be made up, So if you ask me what I think, I'll tell you that actually fake news is the least of our worries as media consumers. No news is the problem. The fact that the large bulk of what is being put out there as news on a daily basis doesn't even meet the criteria of news. But that has become the norm.
Meanwhile, in a separate interview, founder of Free Press Initiative, Joan Chirwa, has urged media institutions to ensure they carry properly resourced news stories in order to uphold the integrity of the journalism profession.
Press freedom isn't about peddling lies, like I said earlier. It's about truth-telling and also saying things as they are. If it is true that this is green and I'm being told that it is black when I know that it is green, then I'm being told. My freedom to express myself is being restricted. Yes, so yes, we have to be cautious somehow when it comes to exercising our freedoms. Also, we have to know that there are also limitations. Much as we want that, but what we should always bear in mind is that we have to do that with the utmost care and also making sure that we are telling the truth. Where there's truth, I don't see any problem with that, and I don't think anybody would challenge you and tell you to keep quiet about it.
Movement for Multi-Party Democracy says the media in Zambia has a huge role to play in ensuring that democracy thrives. In a congratulatory message to Loyola News, Nevas Mumba, the New Hope MMD leader, says the media is key in disseminating message of democracy for it to wake. Dr. Mumba says as the country heads towards the elections, the media must give all politicians a platform to express their views. He was speaking in an interview with Loyola News in Lusaka.
Our dream, those of us that are in politics, is to find media houses that can make democracy work. The only way that democracy can work is to report on what government is saying, but also to equally report on what the opposition is saying. That's how society operates. The moment you only emphasize one interest, you bring what we call crippledness to a society. It's like chopping off one leg and the country is hopping on one. So I hope that even Loyola, as you start, if you give me 5 minutes, give the other gentleman 5 minutes. You may not agree with what we're saying, but there are other Zambians that do. And they deserve to hear the other point of view. And therefore, we encourage all the media outlets to equitably cover all of us without fear or favor, so that the Zambian people have the opportunity to get the cross-section of ideas and views so that they can make informed decisions.
We take another break, and coming up, talks over a trade deal with the EU are hanging in the balance amid a standoff over the UK's plans to override part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. The rugby season to kickstart in March next year. Do stay with us.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic, has upended lives of children and their families. While the health sector buckles, borders closed, businesses and schools shutter. As COVID-19 spreads, so was misinformation, fueling discrimination and stigma. Let's promote facts over fear. Let's bring out the trustworthy guidance to our parents, caregivers, and educators. Despite what you might think or feel, we are not your enemy. We're asking you to stop, be still, to listen. I stayed at work for you. Please, please, stay home. Be the change.
Please do your best to stay at home. If you must leave your home, please remember to mask up. Keep social distancing of at least 1 meter and wash your hands often with soap and running water or any alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
In international news, Mozambique's military has denied accusations of human rights violations leveled against it by Amnesty International over its fight against an Islamist insurgency in the gas-rich northern province of Cabo Delgado. The campaign group had earlier this week accused Mozambican soldiers of murder, torture, ill treatment of prisoners, possible extrajudicial executions, and the transport and discarding of a large number of corpses into apparent mass graves. It relied on what it termed as verified footage and photos from the region showing crimes against detainees. But Mozambique's Defense Ministry spokesperson Omar Saranga said Amnesty didn't take into account the production of such materials by insurgents to discredit the military. He also accused Amnesty International of remaining silent to the barbarism that has plagued Cabo Delgado province since 2017. Officials in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo say 58 people have been killed in 2 attacks. A rebel group called the Allied Democratic Forces is suspected of being behind the violence. It has killed hundreds of civilians in recent months. 17 people are also missing and are thought to have been kidnapped by the group. Officials in Ituri province said the attacks happened because the ADF rebels are under pressure from the Congolese military in neighboring North Kivu province. But that will be of little comfort to the villagers that have been left so vulnerable since the army went on the offensive against the rebels last year. The ADF is one of a dozen armed groups causing havoc in eastern Congo. Rwandan opposition figure Paul Rusesabagina has been able to talk to his family for the first time since being detained on terror charges 10 days ago. His daughter, Karin Kanimba, has told the BBC's Focus on Africa program that he sounded very strange. Mr. Rusesabagina is better known for his role in saving hundreds of Tutsis from the 1994 genocide, in which about 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed. That story was turned into a film, Hotel Rwanda, but the authorities in Rwanda now dispute his version of events. Last week, Mr. Rusesabagina was flown into Rwanda from Dubai. His family say he was kidnapped, but President Paul Kagame said that was not the case. Ms. Kanimba said her conversation with her father was an odd call, to say the least. She said that she could tell that other people were in the room and that her father was not able to speak freely about the case. The World Health Organization (WHO) and the African Centers for Disease Control (CDC) have launched a new laboratory network that will reinforce genome sequencing for coronavirus in Africa. The initiative seeks to study the possible mutations of the virus in order to prepare better responses in public health. Experts from the WHO and the Africa CDC believe that the move will help countries understand the different strains of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in order to improve the country's responses, treatments, or possible vaccines and make them more relevant to the continent's population. 12 specialized laboratories will join the network in Africa. 10 different lineages have been identified so far on the continent. This move comes after the Africa CDC said that early reports were showing that the COVID-19 curve was flattening in Africa, which has a significantly lower number of cases and deaths because of the virus when compared to the rest of the world. But the WHO has cautioned against any premature celebrations, as African nations are also testing their populations much less than the rest of the world. Nigeria's Imo State University has set up a committee to investigate sex for grades claims after videos of lecturers allegedly having sex with students were shared online. One of the videos shows an alleged lecturer being arrested by police while he was half naked. The other video shows a lecturer masturbating in an office after reportedly having sex with a student. Local media outlets have reported that the lecturers were recorded by the students with assistance from security officials. The university's public relations manager has been quoted by the Punch newspaper as saying that the management would not spare anyone found guilty. He spoke about one of the videos where a lecturer was being arrested and said the committee formed had been asked to do a thorough job. Last year, a documentary about sex for grades allegations by the BBC Africa Eye recorded incidents at the University of Ghana and the University of Lagos. The family of Congolese independence hero Patrice Lumumba have welcomed a court ruling that said his tooth should be returned to his family. Mr. Lumumba's nephew, Jean-Jacques Lumumba, said the move is a good step of what happened. He said 2 men who were killed alongside Mr. Lumumba, Joseph Okito and Maurice Mpolo, are also Congo heroes, and the truth about their assassination should be revealed as well. A Belgium court ruled that a tooth taken from Mr. Lumumba's corpse be given to his daughter Juliana, who had written a letter to the Belgian king asking for its return. Mr. Lumumba, who became Congo's first prime minister after it gained independence from Belgium in 1960, was murdered in 1961 after he was abducted by separatist fighters. The Belgian government had a role in his death and in 2002 issued a formal apology. The British and American spy agencies are also believed to have been involved. Lumumba's tooth is thought to have been taken by a Belgian policeman who was helping to dispose of the body. It was later seized by the Belgian authorities. An intelligence analyst at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has said he was put under pressure to downplay the threat of Russian interference in the 3rd November election as it made the president look bad. In a whistleblower complaint, Brian Murphy said he had been demoted for refusing to utter reports on this and other issues such as white supremacy. He said the directives were illegal. The White House and Department of Homeland Security have both denied the allegations. U.S. intelligence agencies concluded that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election, but President Donald Trump had rejected allegations that his election victory was influenced by Russia, at times questioning findings from his own security agencies. Talks over a trade deal with the EU are hanging in the balance amid a standoff over the UK's plans to override part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. The EU has warned the UK it would face legal action if it does not ditch controversial elements of the internal market bill by the end of this month. Concerned Conservative MPs have launched a bid to amend the new law, but ministers say they will not give way. Trade talks are due to resume on Monday amid significant differences. Boris Johnson's proposed internal market bill, which will be formally debated by MPs in the House of Commons for the first time on Monday, addresses the Northern Ireland Protocol, an element of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. designed to prevent a harder border returning to the island of Ireland. The new law would give UK ministers powers to modify or disapply rules relating to the movement of goods that will come into force from 1st January if the UK and EU are unable to strike a trade deal. And in sports news, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen many sports disciplines come to a halt. One of the sporting activities that has been affected is rugby. Noble Chisanga, the Zambia Rugby Union director, has bemoaned the failure for the league to take off. Mr. Chisanga is, however, hopeful that the league could resume in March next year. He was speaking to Loyola News in Lusaka.
Actually, we've all been affected. Yeah, technically this was exhibited even by Rugby Africa, which is our African governing body, where we are affiliated to, and many other African countries. So they had to cancel all the international tournaments, engagements for 2020 because of the survey they did as well independently. They looked at all different countries and the sanctions that have been imposed. So for them, it was not possible to continue the international engagements. So technically, we've been affected. As Zambia, we participate in many international games. We also host the famous Zambia International Sevens, which is the biggest revenue for ZRU. Yeah, so technically, financially, we've been affected. Our players are not able to compete at any stage or our age grades. Yeah. Then as ZRU, we also looked at the time frame. We thought it was not possible to continue because our league, 15th league, runs on 15 weeks maximum. So from the time our league started in March, it could have been ended in July. So we looked at July, the time that the league could have ended. It was not possible to resume.
Rugby Union, widely known simply as rugby, is a full contact team sport that originated in England during the first half of the 19th century. One of the two codes of rugby football, it is based on running with the ball in hand. South Africa are the current champions, having defeated England in the final of the 2019 tournament in Japan. That sporting item brings us to the end of the news, but before we go, here's a look at stories that made headlines once again. Schools to reopen between 14th and 28th September. Learning institutions closed last March following the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, but pupils in examination classes reopened on June 1st. And bars, taverns and nightclubs will operate from Friday to Sundays between 18 hours and 23 hours. Movement for Multi-Party Democracy says the media in Zambia has a huge role to play in ensuring that democracy thrives. In a congratulatory message to Loyola Television, Nevas Mumba, the New Hope MMD leader, says the media is key in disseminating message of democracy for it to wake. Dr. Mumba says the country heads towards elections. The media must give all politicians a platform to express their views. The family of Congolese independence hero Patrice Lumumba has welcomed a court ruling that stated that his tooth should be returned to his family. A Belgian court ruled that a tooth taken from Mr. Lumumba's corpse be given to his daughter Juliana, who had written a letter to the Belgian king asking for its return. Talk over a trade deal with the EU is hanging in the balance amid a standoff with the UK's plans to override part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. The EU has warned the UK it could face legal action if it does not ditch the controversial elements of the internal market bill by the end of this month. Concerned Conservative MPs have launched a bid to amend the new law, but ministers say they will not give way. That brings us to the end of the news. On behalf of the entire news and production crew, my name is Clement Mwanza. Good night.